Hey guys, it's time for another Methoda webinar. And this time we have a very exciting topic. We'll take a look at the past Prime Day, or PEACE, how it's currently called by Amazon and by some people in the market. Prime Early Amazon Sales, Prime Early Access Sale Day. Okay, let's directly jump into our presentation. Before I introduce myself, let's shortly talk about the agenda. We want to share with you our view on the market, how we believe it is currently developing. We want to talk about PEACE, the second Prime Day in 2022, which is the main topic, and we have digged into the data a lot, and we've done some kinds of analysis that we've never done before. And then my colleague Stephanie will share information and data and insights on how we managed Prime Day, the second Prime Day this year. Okay, guys, the first topic is our view on the market. But before we get started, let me shortly introduce myself. My name is Stefan. I'm one of the founders of Methoda. I'm doing this for 10 years now. My background is performance marketing and e-commerce. And my core responsibility at the moment is the products that we're offering to you, the data and the automations that we've built into our software. So why do we say it's a challenging environment? Everyone who's following the news can read that the world is basically on the brink of a recession. We have supply chain issues. We have high inflation popping up everywhere. At the same time, we have some industries with overstocks. The central banks are raising the interest rates, which makes obviously business way harder. And at the same time, we see slowing economic growth this year already, but also the outlook for next year is not really promising. And we've just copied some of the sentiment indicators here to the right side, but I guess you're all aware of this. So we also decided to take a look at what Amazon's doing, because this is our biggest focus, all of us, I think. And this is the development of Amazon's net sales online stores numbers. So if you take a look at the investor relations report from Amazon, the financial report, you will directly find these figures in there. And it's quarterly figures that we've analyzed, also in the next charts. And what do we see in there? So first of all, when basically the corona pandemic started in 2020, we saw a huge increase in sales numbers on the Amazon online stores. During corona, during the past years, that slowed down a lot. So we're somehow stagnating up to a point that year over year, Q2 2022 versus Q2 2021, we even see a decline in the net sales of Amazon's online stores. That is not the full gross merchandise volume of Amazon. This is just the part that Amazon is generating with its vendor business, just to be very precise on where the numbers come from. Okay. And at the same time, which is, I mean, one of the topics of this webinar, we've also taken a look at the advertising revenue that Amazon has generated in the past 3 years. And what we see here is that this is still heavily growing. So we've seen a high growth of 55% plus year over year in 2020. We've then seen to 2021 another high growth of 78%. This is really tremendous. And Q2 this year versus Q2 last year, we still have grown by almost 20%, so 18% up. And you can imagine that when basically sales on Amazon's online stores is slowing down, and we still see rising Amazon advertising revenues, this is not really beneficial for the efficiency of Amazon advertising campaigns. So we decided to also take a look at the return on ad spend that a typical advertiser is generating through Amazon advertising. And we basically did some calculations here. This is our own estimations. But it doesn't matter how you calculate the numbers. You always see one thing quite clearly. There's a decrease in the return on ad spend. And this decrease is pretty heavy. So we started in 2019 Q2 at almost a return on ad spend of 10. And we're now in Q2 2022 at a return of almost 6, which is almost 40% down. And this is really something where you have to think about what does that mean for my advertising strategy. Okay, so let's jump into Ps. So Prime Early Access Sale Day, or the second Prime Day in 2022. And first of all, what is Ps? Ps was something that was happening on October 11 and 12. It was how Amazon called it, the early Q4 shopping event to basically introduce Prime members to the Q4 shopping season. And if you compare the official figures, we could just find these two numbers to compare. It's not the same, as you will see, but the first Prime Day this year, Amazon stated that they sold, or people and Prime members purchased more than 300 million items worldwide. This is quite an amazing number. It makes this the biggest Prime Day or sales event ever. And if we compare this to Ps, Amazon stated that Prime members ordered more than 100 million items, which looks pretty much similar, comparable. But they also stated that these 100 million items were ordered from Amazon selling partners, which means probably the marketplace, but we don't know exactly. So we can't really compare these numbers one by one, but you can definitely guess that Ps was way smaller than Prime Day, than the first Prime Day or Prime Day, the real Prime Day this year. And here also the official statistics, by the way, how Prime Day developed over the years. This is an estimate that we took from an external blog. But I think what is really worth mentioning here is something that we will also see in the data later today. I found one quote from Hannah Haglam. I hope I pronounce her correctly. And she's vice president at Art of Tea. And she said that basically it was quite a nice event. Sales rose by 35% during the event compared to an average day. However, the rising advertising costs and some other shopper specifics that changed put lots of pressure on the margins. And I think this is why this webinar is more important than ever. Okay, so what can we see in terms of ad spend? And we've analyzed lots of the data that we have in our internal systems, partly because we manage these advertising accounts, and partly because these accounts are using our software to manage their Amazon advertising business. And I'm talking here about sponsored ads, so this is not including DSP at the moment. If we compare Ps to Prime Day 1 in June 2022, so this year, or we compare it to Prime Day in October 2020, because it was the same season, we wanted to have some comparable events, so one this year and one in 2020, because it was also an October Prime Day, we find the following. The ad spend is tremendously lower compared, so the increase in ad spend for Prime Day this year for Ps is 46% lower compared to the average uplift in ad spend that we've seen in the other two Prime Day events. And basically, we also have an explanation for this. We've talked to lots of vendors and sellers, and they basically didn't really plan for this second Prime Day this year. They were all prepared for Cyber Week, obviously, but a second Prime Day was not really on their agenda. So they had to shift budgets, or maybe they had to create new budgets. But this is also due to the economic times we're in, maybe not the most easiest at the moment. Then let's take a look at the generated ad revenue, also for sponsored ads. I'm talking only about sponsored ads here. So also here we see a decline if we compare it to the previous events. So it's 44%, the uplift of Peace, so Prime Day 2, is 44% lower compared to the uplift we've seen on the other shopping events. But if we take into account that the ad spend was relatively also in that range, I guess this is quite comparable, quite a comparable performance, or quite an expected performance. Now let's take a look at the CPCs. And we've heard in the market over the past months, and we've seen it also in our software, that basically CPCs have been a lot under pressure due to high inflation, due to overstocks partly, and so on. And you can also see that in these numbers here. So compared partly at least. So if you compare it to 2020, the uplift in CPC was very similar to the uplift in CPC that we've seen on Prime Day 2 in this year. But if we compare it to the first Prime Day that we had, basically the uplift is 35% lower compared to what we've seen in the first Prime Day this year. And we believe it's the same explanation behind. So due to lower ad spends, due to a bit less fierce competition, the CPCs didn't went up that high compared to the Prime Day 1 we've seen this year. And finally, we also want to take a look at the ROAS, obviously, because this is a very critical factor if you decide on how much budget you're planning for sponsored ads. And maybe one thing that is common across all Prime Days, on Prime Day, on sponsored ads, we on average see a drop of about minus 15% in the return on ad spend. This may sound quite interesting or strange, but if you think about it, so companies are heavily investing ad spends on Prime Day. They're increasing their ad spends. At the same time, you have discounts on your products. So the return, even if there's a push in absolute sales numbers, the return is less than in the 30-day period before. Okay, we found something in the data that we never showed before, and I want to share this because I believe it's quite an interesting insight. We've analyzed also the performance. This is only data, by the way, from Peace, so from Prime Day 2 this year. And we've taken a look at the return on ad spends by campaign type. And what you can see here is that, so if you take a look at the 30 days before Prime Day period, at the Prime Day period, and the 5-day period after Prime Day, you'll basically see that sponsored products are performing best in terms of return before Prime Day. They are very much under, the return on ad spend is very much under pressure on Prime Day, and then it recovers a bit after Prime Day. And by the way, I guess that's no surprise, sponsored product is still the most important ad format campaign type from Amazon. I will start with the smallest one. So if you take a look at sponsored display, this campaign type is very much focused on not only a sales generation, but you see that the change before Prime Day, on Prime Day, and after Prime Day is this pretty flat. And then let's take a look at the very interesting finding we had. So if you check for the data for sponsored brands, you will see that they performed worse before Prime Day. And on Prime Day, they really get boosted in terms of the return on ad spend. So we saw across all of the ad spend that we manage, we saw an increase in the return of the campaigns by 42%, which is massive. So this could be something that you should maybe take into account when you think about the upcoming Cyber Week high deal season. What else did we find? And this year is, I guess, one of the first years. We started last year really heavily in supporting customers with DSP, but this year we saw a high increase in budgets in the DSP, and we decided we also want to take a look at the DSP KPIs. And this is, we compare it to Prime Day 1, 2022, simply because in 2020, we didn't have, let's say, statistical significant data to compare it with. What you can see here is there's a difference in how the ad spends are developing before Prime Day, on Prime Day, and after Prime Day. So you see there's a way longer ramp-up phase to really get this is something in the nature of DSP. You need some time to get really the budgets high. So there's a bit different curve. But what we can see here is that compared to the Prime Day 1 this year, we saw a 33% uplift in the ad spend that our customers spend on DSP. Interestingly, we saw a decline in revenues. So in Prime Day 1 this year, we were, well, no, I have to put it the opposite. So in this Prime Day 2 or piece, we saw an uplift in sales that's 44% lower compared to the previous 30 days. But I just want to note one thing. This huge difference is mainly due to the first day of the analysis. You see that in Prime Day 2, the ad revenue is dropping immediately, and that was not the case 30 days prior to Prime Day 1. So let's take a look at the return, because this is the most important factor of all when it comes to Amazon advertising, campaign optimization, and campaign management. What we see here is that we see really huge returns. We saw it in Prime Day 1, and we see it also on Prime Day 2. So on Prime Day 1, the 30 days before were at an average ROAS of around about 12, 13. Then we saw an uplift that went on Prime Day 1, I guess, up to almost 80. And that's a return on ad spend. 80 times what you've invested into the DSP. And we saw something very comparable in the last Prime Day. So before Prime Day 2, we've been slightly higher compared to the 30 days prior to Prime Day 1. And on Prime Day 2, we saw an uplift of up to almost 70, a return on ad spend of up to 70. This is, in our view, pretty amazing, because you can see that Amazon advertising, the sponsored ads area, is in a very mature phase in the market. There's high competition, but we still see lots of potentials in the DSP. And if you compare the whole period under analysis, you will see that on Prime Day 1, the whole period returned on average a return of 15. And on Prime Day 2, we generated a return of around about 19, which is, I think, pretty amazing. Okay. We also wanted to prepare a case study that you can directly compare sponsored ads with the DSP. And we've chosen, this is anonymous customer data. We've chosen one customer, a mid-sized customer, in terms of the ad spend. And all of the data that you see here is daily averages. So in the first charts, what do you see? You will see the ad spend, how it developed 30 days before Prime Day, how it developed on Prime Day, and 5 days thereafter. And what you can see is basically that this customer didn't decide for a very aggressive strategy. They simply decided, let's basically keep it on the same level as before. The only exception is the DSP. Here we increased revenue by 40%, the average daily revenue. But you can see here that's absolute euro numbers or dollar numbers is almost the same. And this is DSP is on a relatively low level. But what I think is pretty interesting is the uplift that we've seen on Prime Day, on the 2 Prime days, on the 2 days of Prime Day. We see that the generated revenue for sponsored ads increased by 55%, which is pretty decent. And the DSP, however, achieved an increase of more than 200%, 208% plus, compared to the 30 days before Prime Day. And if we take at ROAS, which is basically combining all of this, you will find that the sponsored ads got an increase in ROAS by 57. And for the DSP, we saw an increase of 120% in the return on ad spend. And this is why I personally believe that DSP is really the hidden secret when it comes to Amazon advertising today. Okay, so just to sum up a little bit, I've not touched everything here, but we would be very much interested in your feedback and in the data that you would like to see in our next recap webinar, or maybe we recap basically Q4 in the end in January. So first of all, on Prime Day, it's very important that you focus on the right campaign setup. And here I especially mean try to really test how the different ad formats like sponsored brands versus sponsored products versus sponsored display perform. And if you have not used it so far, try to really leverage DSP. And there are some best practices that Stephanie will share in a second with you. Let me just come to the last point. There's also something to do before Prime Day. I'm pretty sure you're all aware of this. But first of all, you should ensure retail readiness. This is the basics. We've spoken, we've organized many webinars on that topic. We've talked a lot with everyone about that, I guess. The second is really think about what deals you want to submit or what deals you're really about to give to your customers, to offer. And here I think it's quite important to really focus on the products that can have attraction for you and impact for your business. But on the other hand, it's not only maybe the focus products that you would like to get pushed. We always experience that a deal product needs to be something where you've definitely proven that the market wants to have it. And thirdly, well, it's about brand building. So if you want to, so in all statistics, and we've not prepared statistics for this webinar on that topic, but in all statistics that we check for Prime Day and for high deal season, people are really looking for branded search terms. So the increase in brand traffic is amazing. And the better you've prepared that people know your brand beforehand, the more impact you will see on these deal seasons. Okay, guys, this brings me basically to the end of my part. And I'm very happy to now introduce you to my colleague, Steffi.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Steph. I'm a customer success manager here at Metoda. I'm working with customers on a daily basis, and our goal is to achieve the best results for our customers with Amazon ads, basically. So we're going to jump right into the best practice strategies. And we're going to be covering all of the Amazon marketplaces, and we're going to look at all categories and campaign types. The 3 points that I will be covering in this part are what are the best practices for hero events, how did these different approaches actually perform, and we're going to end it all with key takeaways and lessons that we learned from this Prime Day and how we can use that for Black Friday and Cyber Monday week, but also for the last part of Q4. Okay. All right. Let's jump right into and look at the strategic approaches that you have for hero events like the Prime Days. There are basically 3 approaches, which are the standard strategy, the focus strategy, and a deal boost approach. As you can imagine, there is no definite answer on which strategy is the best, because that obviously not only depends on your actual goals, but also the budget that you have available. What you can see in this chart, however, is a clear correlation of how visible you will want to be versus how efficient you would want to keep your campaigns. So the standard strategy is basically an approach where you're just running your regular ads. So that means sponsored product, sponsored brand, and sponsored display. You will not focus on any deals. You're basically going about your day-to-day business as if nothing is happening. If you want to take on a more active approach, you would probably go for a focus strategy. That means you're running all your campaigns anyways, but you're also focusing on a couple of deals and trying to push those more to reach more visibility. If you want to go all out, and if your budget allows for this as well, a deal boost strategy would be your best go-to approach. And this would mean Amazon DSP remarketing campaigns in combination with deals. We're going to have a closer look into each of these approaches and strategies now, just to understand them better, but also to see their actual effects during the second Prime Day. Okay, so the standard strategy is basically the best approach to protect yourself and your sales without adding any additional budget. Sticking with this approach during events like Prime Day basically means that you're keeping everything as it is. There's no additional budget, there's no deal support, and no additional campaigns. With this approach, you also make sure that there is a consistent distribution of your planned budgets, which basically means that the targets you have throughout the year will stay mostly consistent and are met regardless of the increased traffic that you will find during these hero events. To get to the results of how this approach worked, we basically looked at the Tuesday and Wednesday 2 weeks before the actual Prime Day. So that was September 27th to 28th versus during actual Prime Day. So that was October 11th until October 12th. What we have found out is that even with this Prime Day, which was significantly smaller than the first one, as Stefan has already mentioned, you can still be pretty successful and make a difference. And that means with no additional budget or deals or any focus products, we saw that there was on average still an increase of about 18% in impressions, a 35% increase in conversions, and the CPC dropped from 27 cents to 26 cents. There was a ROAS that went from 15 to 20. And we can see by looking at these numbers that even with a standard strategy, so no additional efforts, basically, you can still benefit from the increased traffic that Amazon has on these kind of events. If we're taking a closer look at the focus strategy, we can basically see that this is a way to raise brand awareness while pushing for more deals. For this approach, you are basically running all your regular campaigns, but on top of that, there are also defined focus products, and these will receive a higher budget share, and with this, of course, also higher bids. To ensure that your brand stays visible, we're actually even using a different algorithm during Prime Day that divides your budget into 24 pieces, and this will assure that your campaigns will run throughout the day, but this also ensures that your brand will be visible throughout the whole event and not just run out after, let's say, half the day and you're missing out on other traffic periods. What's also really nice within this strategy is that we can split your budget and put a stronger focus on the first day or the second day, depending on your likings. And we can also choose if we want to push the same deals during both days or switch it up and see what works best for you. Also, another benefit in this approach is that you can also adjust the budgets and the bids. So this means if you see that something has worked especially well on the first day, you can basically either push that, or if something didn't go as planned because there was a lack of budget, you can also adjust this and benefit from more traffic or better results on the second day. As you can very clearly see, these numbers already differ a great deal to the ones we saw in the standard approach. So even within the second Prime Day, which was significantly smaller than the first one or any in the years before, we did see an increase of 424% in impressions and a 178% increase in conversions. And you can clearly see that this is already, or these results are already a lot better than what we did see in the standard strategy. What we also see, however, is that this comes with a cost, namely a significantly higher CPC that went from an average of 47 cents to €2.10, and a ROAS that went from 11 to 3. All right, let's take a closer look at some changes in the percentage and some other KPIs, specifically for the standard and the focus strategy. As the base, we have the gray bar right on top, which is the period before Prime Day. And then we have the blue bar, which represents the standard strategy, and the green one, which represents the focus strategy. And what you can see very clearly right from the beginning is that the standard approach generated an increase of 18% in costs, while increasing the revenue by 59% and increasing the impressions by 37%. In contrast to this, we can basically see the immense effect that the focus strategy has compared to the standard strategy, because here the costs increased by a staggering 1,381%, but you can also see an immense increase of revenue, to be exact, of 346%, and an increase of 424% in impressions. So looking at these numbers, you might wonder, is there such a thing as a better strategy? And as you can imagine, it's not that simple, because this just depends on a lot of different factors. These factors are, on the one hand, your budget, but also on your actual goal. If your goal is to increase visibility and brand awareness or push sales, and you have the additional budget to do this or to pursue this goal, then the focus strategy is definitely your go-to strategy for these kind of events. But if your goal is rather to be as efficient as possible throughout the whole year, then the standard strategy might be a better approach to actually reach your goals. There is, however, a third option if you really want to go all out and invest not only in brand awareness, but also maybe attract existing as well as new audiences. Then this third approach might be super interesting with you. And this is where we come to Amazon DSP. When we run campaigns with Amazon, we do not only have the option to run these ads on Amazon itself, but we can obviously push them even further and thereby expand Amazon's reach. While sponsored ads are on Amazon itself and they do increase visibility on Amazon, DSP campaigns can basically open up a whole new dimension of potential customers and a whole new dimension of ways that you and your products can be discovered. With Amazon DSP, let me switch the slide. All right. With Amazon DSP, you usually boost either your most promising products or novelties by showing them on Amazon as well as on third-party websites. If you're looking at events like Prime Day, these responsive e-commerce banners basically automatically show deal badges, as you can see on the bottom of this slide, which add an extra highlight to the offer and thereby are more likely to convert into a sale. And what's really important to keep in mind for this approach is also that we actively target shoppers who have already been exposed to your brand or have shown interest in your brand or product, and try to catch their attention by convincing them through the specific offer that is actively pushed with an extra budget. With this approach, we do need a couple of different things, as you can imagine. What's really, really important is the additional budget that we need for this strategy, because otherwise the deal boost would simply not work. We also need the deal products, and also what's super important, a defined audience that looks the most promising when looking at the likelihood of converting clicks into sales. What this means is basically we will target shoppers that have already visited your product page or similar product pages, and we will retarget them throughout the event days. If we look at the effect or the effects that we could see with this approach, you can see how well it actually worked. We had an increase in detailed page views of 490%, an increase of sales of 644%. The ROAS also increased 324%. Again, this shows how much you can actually boost your campaigns and generate even more visibility by not only using your sponsored ads, but also making use of Amazon DSP. All right, so what can we take away from these learnings and these best practices that we've seen do work even during a smaller event like the second Prime Day? If you think of the next 2 months, basically, there's a pretty tight timeline for the remaining months, but even so, those still allow for enough time to make the most of the remaining quarter. It's basically all up to knowing your priorities and your goals and then choosing the right strategy that you want to implement. And the best approach from our perspective is to do so within the first week of November, which is basically the pre-Cyber Week period. In this period, it's super, super important to make sure you finalize all your deals and campaign setups so that they are ready and you can basically ensure that you are as visible as possible during the actual Cyber Week and benefit from the increased traffic and all the possibilities that this super special week brings with it. Cyber Week itself is from November 18th to the 28th this year. And right afterwards, so once this finishes, it's basically your last chance to really push all your sales and spend the budgets that you have left for this quarter, because the Christmas sale period basically starts right away. And you can use this time until the last shipping day, basically, which is for non-Prime members December 19th, and for Prime members it's December 22nd. Right after Christmas ends, you usually experience a super slow and lower traffic period because all the Christmas sales are over. People will most likely not spend that much money right after Christmas, but this is the perfect period to basically get ready for the winter sales and to retarget these shoppers that have already shown interest in your products by offering them very attractive end of the year sales, basically. All right, this was basically it from my end, and thank you everyone for listening.
Okay, guys, that's been it from our side. We've been amazed by all the feedback that we received in between and all your questions. We decided that we will collect them, review them, and send you basically an overview of all the questions and answers thereafter. And in this follow-up email, we'll also ask about what can we improve for the next time, what statistics maybe you want to take a look at. And I guess then the remaining words, the main things we can say here is have a really successful remaining Q4, a real successful Cyber Week. And if you need anything, have any questions, then just let us know. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.